everyone. Welcome to today's virtual event. My name is Evan Carroll. I'm the president of Attended Events, and 72 hours ago, we decided to put on a virtual event. So I'm coming to you live from our downtown Raleigh office, and we're so excited all of you could join. Last time I looked, nearly 100 of you decided to join our virtual event today, and we are so happy to have you here. So today we have a few things lined up for you. First up, we will have a fireside chat with myself, with Stephanie Scotti and Glenn Gautier. They'll be joining us via Zoom, and we're going to be discussing virtual events and how to prepare for them and what makes them unique. Second, to show you a different kind of format, we are going to have Stan Phelps join us right here in studio to deliver a keynote entitled Excellence Under Pressure. Following that, Meredith Oliver will join us, and she's going to help us learn how to make our marketing resonate during this time of crisis. And she'll be joining us completely via Zoom, coming right here to our studio. And then finally, I'll give you a tour of all the technology and the things that we're using via Hop-In today to make this virtual event possible. So at this point, I would like to ask the magic of the internet, which is really the magic of the people seated to my right, to have Stephanie and Glenn join us here in the studio. There we are, Stephanie and Glenn. Welcome to today's virtual event. It's so good to have you here.
Great to be here.
Excellent. Well, we're going to jump right in, and I will remind our audience, as I just said, that Stephanie and Glenn are joining us via Zoom. We're bringing them into our studio, running them through our equipment, and then pushing them out to you via Hop-In. And so Stephanie is the executive director at Professionally Speaking, and she has spent her entire career helping business professionals deliver more effective, more meaningful messages when they step on stage. She's joined also by Glenn Gautier, who is the president and executive producer at 2+ Communications, and he has an extensive career as an executive producer for events, tons of great experience. So we are excited to have both of them here in our live event studio for our conversation today. So we'll get things started. This isn't our first time really seeing a streaming style event, right? We've done this several times in our evolution of events, is what I'm trying to say. And Glenn, you were telling me a few days ago as we were preparing that whenever there's a reason to go virtual, the entire industry goes virtual as if we just discovered it. And then we find ourselves reverting right back to the way we used to do things. Glenn, why do you think that is?
Well, I think, it's out of necessity. Clearly everybody's, stuck at home, and so we have to find a way to continue to connect and do business. But as soon as that reason goes away, we revert right back to, the power and the wonder of face-to-face meetings.
Mm-hmm. And, I think, Evan, if I can tap into that too, we've also reached a tipping point here. Right now with where technology is at, and now we're facing the situation where we have to find alternatives, that there's a nice marriage that's happening. And companies that were considering doing this now have perhaps more of a reason to look at it and see how they could really make it happen. So we'll see what happens in the next 6-8 months. But I suspect that we'll get to a point where people will be more discriminating in what they choose to do physically or what they choose to do virtually, based on what we've been asked to do because of the situation the country or the world is currently in.
Yeah, I think that comment, Stephanie, about tipping point resonates with me also, because when you take a look at the demographic of the people in the workplace, it's definitely skewed much younger, people that have grown up with technology. So I think they're willing to embrace this solution of making virtual meetings more of an ongoing kind of tool and not just something that's a Band-Aid when we have to, figure out how to get together. And I think it's really incumbent upon us at this time, if we want it to stick, is to look at creating virtual events differently than the way that we've done them in the past.
Certainly so. And so obviously this is something that I've learned over this last 72 hours. There's a lot of preparation that needs to go into a virtual event. There's certainly preparation that goes into an in-person event, but I'm curious, if you think about delivering content in a virtual environment, as Stan or Meredith will be doing later in our program, what should speakers consider or adjust to be successful for either of you?
I think it's the same whether it's a physical presentation or whether it's a virtual presentation. You still want to make sure your content is very clear and digestible. You never want to overwhelm your audience or your listeners and get into information overload situation. And that is across the board just a foundational piece of philosophy or strategy you should be using. And just because it's virtual doesn't mean people don't need you to be engaged in the talk yourself. You have to be personally connected to what you're saying to help the audience get personally connected in it as well, to get engaged from their perspective. So fundamentally, simple, clear, don't make me work too hard, make it easy for me to understand what you're saying, and that way I can take it to the next level.
I think also, Stephanie, it ups the ante. It raises the bar in terms of preparation. People that think that, oh, well, I've presented before in front of a physical audience, I know what to do. It's very, very different virtually, and I think a lot of the leeway that you have with a live audience evaporates when you go virtual. So you really have to be on top of your game and know not only how to deliver your message and know your message and have sharp visuals, all those check boxes that we have to make, but also you have to spend extra time thinking about how you're going to engage your audience.
Absolutely. Whether it's physical or virtual, that question of engagement needs to be considered thoughtfully.
Yes, yes, indeed. And fortunately, that's one of the nice things about virtual technology is it can actually solve some of the problems that physical meetings still have. So we generally look at virtual meetings as being less than, which is why as soon as we can return to physical meetings, virtual meetings evaporate unless they're absolutely essential. But I think if we use technology, for example, to boost audience interaction with speakers, to be able to go more rapidly from a plenary session type presentation to a collaborative work group situation, technology can facilitate that a lot more quickly than breaking 500 people up into 10 different breakout rooms.
Sure.
Good point.
Very good point. And I want to change gears really quickly here to the question of audio. Now, we know that audio is so important for any time that we're experiencing an event virtually. And I actually want to go off script here for a moment and want to talk about the audio setups that Stephanie and Glenn are using. If for no other reason than I'm hearing a little bit of noise in my earpiece and I want to figure out where it's coming from. So Stephanie, my understanding is you have an earpiece very similar to mine, as well as a snowball microphone that you're using in your office. Is that correct?
Yes, but I don't think the snowball is actually operating. I think the speakers off the computer is what's operating now.
Got it, got it. And Glenn, tell us about your setup.
Well, I'm operating off of the microphone on my Microsoft Surface Pro. I too am hearing a delay. It's almost like when you call into a radio station, you fail to turn down your radio. So I'm hearing what I'm saying a couple seconds later. So there's a lot of delay. One of the interesting things about this speaks to the technology, right? We were able to pull this together because of your initiative saying Monday afternoon, hey, we're going to do a virtual event, and poof, here it is, Thursday afternoon, and we've got an event pulled together. So that's great. You work through and you run through the technology, but unless you really get a chance to work through all the different scenarios, you're going to come up with situations like this, and you just have to adapt.
Right, and I think had we had maybe 24 more hours, we might have been able to consider what different audio setups our guests might have, and we might be able to adjust them accordingly. So let's move. Oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
I just wanted to add, Evan, just for people to know, we did do a tech rehearsal too. I think that's important for the audience to know, for our listeners to know, really our collaborators to know that have dialed in today to us, that we did do a tech check. And even though you can do the advanced work, doesn't mean that real time something doesn't become disruptive.
That's exactly right. It's the same pressure we have at actual, in-person events, that sometimes our technology needs to be tested and retested, and we need to have option 1 and option 2. So lots of considerations there. I'll take this as a moment to mention that there is a chat area as a part of Hopin, and I believe you'll see it on the right side of your screen, which is over there, if I'm pointing in the correct direction. And if you have questions about virtual events or want to help continue the discussion, please leave your questions there. And during our discussion session later today, Stephanie and Glenn and I will be sure to answer them. So let's switch gears and talk about engagement. And so how do you guys feel like we can boost engagement despite the obvious limitations of technology and the virtual format, and certainly the plentiful distractions we have when we're tuning in from our offices, or in this case, many of us from our home offices or our makeshift home offices? How can we boost engagement?
Stephanie, you want to take that one first?
Certainly the plentiful distractions we have when we're tuning in from our offices, or in this case, many of us our home offices or our makeshift home offices. How can we boost engagement?
Glenn, you've already alluded to engagement. Why don't you take the lead there?
Okay, great. No problem. The engagement begins beyond the technology, and I think that's one of the big areas for improvement in structuring virtual events. So many people start off thinking about what platform should I use, and I think that's exactly the wrong way to structure a virtual event. You really need to think about what is it that you want to accomplish with your audience, and then what types of formats and interactivity is going to bring that about, and then work with a seasoned professional, somebody with technology expertise, to help you pick the platform that's going to best support that kind of an environment. So that's the foundation that I see for engagement.
Mm-hmm. And with that, I think it's all about your mindset too. You don't want to have people do things just for the sake of doing them. You want it to be purposeful in what they do. So when you're thinking about your event or a particular session in your event, what really are your objectives? What do you want people to say, do, or feel as a result of attending that session? And then what can you do to engage them, either through technology, if you want to do polling, or having them send in questions, which allows you for a dialogue back and forth. That's a great resource. But I even consider at times, and I've seen it done quite well with speakers, even rhetorical questions if you don't have the time. And that's where it comes down to the delivery, because your objective is really to get people from being passive listeners to engaged participants. And that can happen in a variety of ways. One of my favorite, I witnessed once, it's a huge association meeting, and it was being streamed while it was happening. And the speaker was talking about really being frustrated. And I think it was the movie Shampoo. I'm not sure of the movie. It just slipped my mind, but you all might remember this line. And the line is, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." And he was talking about something in their industry that was frustrating everybody in the room. And he said, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Do you agree with me? If you do, stand up and yell it out." And he actually got everybody up, even people in the streaming audience that were watching it online, and say it. So I think part of it is realizing, one, what you want to accomplish, two, having the ability as a speaker to engage their hearts and engage them in the message so they do want to participate and have fun with it. And say it.
Yeah, and I think, Stephanie, that it comes to also recognizing what's working in the social media platforms, whether it's something as simple as a YouTube video, that you've got to come up with something in the first 40 seconds that just grabs them. And then you've got to realize that, I'm sitting here at my computer, I could be looking at my other screen and multitasking. So you've got to keep me engaged. And that means, at least every 2 minutes or so, there should be something that brings me right back. And recognize that while we may look at plenary session presentations in an in-person meeting as being 15, 20 minutes long, whoa, you've lost me after 10 minutes if I'm online. So even if it's, multiple things that are coming up, keep changing it up. Not only the interactivity that you talk about, but think about the structure of the agenda as well.
The pace of the talk and the structure of the meeting. Yep.
Absolutely. And you'll notice that for our meeting today, all of our sessions are about 15 minutes in length with a little bit of time for Q&A, because we wanted this to move quickly, because we recognize that attention spans are very different online than they are when you're a captive audience in a room. So speaking of, we're about 15 minutes into our conversation, believe it or not. And so I want to go to one final question for both of you, and that is, what's the process that we should follow? If we decide tomorrow as an event planner or producer, say, we're going to have a virtual event, or we're going to take our event that was scheduled to be in person, and now it's going to be virtual. What process should we follow?
You know, Evan, Glenn and I were just talking about that this morning, because several of our clients independently and together are facing that question. And how are we counseling them? You know, what are we saying to them? Glenn, you want to pick it up on what we were saying this morning?
Yeah, what we were talking about was the fact that it starts exactly the same way if you're planning a successful physical event or presentation. Really with understanding the strategy of it, the objectives of it, and structuring an agenda that has an emotional curve to it, because it's not only about the information and the interactivity, it's also about the hearts as well as the minds.
Mhm.
So you build them exactly the same way. And I fear that, you know, what's always happened in the past is people jump to the technology of, oh, we're going to do this, we need a stage, and we need to have this platform because we want to have polling, and back it up. And if you really want to have a meaningful virtual event, you plan it the same way as you do a live event.
And that includes a team of people you put together to collaborate with that. And if it's virtual, you may be relying more on IT people or people that have experience with those platforms to help you pick and choose. Just like when you do a physical event, you have somebody going out and doing, looking for a venue and making sure those specs meet the need of what you're trying to accomplish in your meeting.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it comes in, I think, at exactly the same time that, you talk about what you want to accomplish with the event. But as soon as you start looking at audience size, that automatically, even in a virtual environment, starts to drive you towards particular technologies. But it's exactly at that point that you need to rely on the audiovisual streaming technology specialists that can lay out an array of choices, and then you can pull and structure the type of platform that's going to deliver the event that you want. It's beyond webinars. Once you reach the point where you've outstripped the webinar, you really need to think about what some of the platforms are that are available.
That's an excellent point. And when we were putting together this particular event, our number one criteria in putting it together is, this is not a webinar. A webinar is a very different thing. Webinars, I kind of feel like they have a little bit of a reputation as being entertainment that you turn on while you're working on something else. And that's exactly the objective we were not going for this particular event. So I'm hearing it loud and clear from both of you that we want to figure out the purpose of our virtual event first, and then let the technology serve that purpose. Any final thoughts before we move on to our next segment?
I think the only thing that I would want to say is I'm just very thankful, just in a very short period of time, to see the reaction of people within the industry, as well as clients and just folks that I don't even know that are participating, that this isn't going to last forever, this situation. But the things that we're doing now, leaning in together, figuring out how to help each other through this, that's hopefully going to be very enduring, because we definitely need to all come together and stay together.
Mhm.
Anything from you, Stephanie, as we close up?
I just think whether it's virtual or physical, it's just an opportunity to reach out and support and recognize that it's not about perfection, but it's about connection. And this is one more tool that allows us to connect really around the world and make sure that we are clear and engaging, but most of all, caring in all that we do.
Excellent. Well, Stephanie Scotti, Glenn Gautier, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and the expertise that you brought to our virtual event. Now, one of the things that I think is really important in planning a virtual event is sticking to your timeline. And so we specifically for this segment only had a handful of questions. We didn't think of this the same way we would think of an hour-long panel. We wanted to just hit the highlights, those important things that we wanted you to hear. So in our next segment, we're going to experience a virtual keynote. And for this keynote, our keynote presenter has joined us right here in the studio. Now, one of the great things about the conference room that we're in turned studio is that we're able to change things up a bit and make things feel a little bit different for every single presenter. I'm actually going to do something that's a little bit off script, and I'm going to turn over here to Jennifer, who's behind our lighting console. Can you make things look a little different for us? And you'll notice that the lights behind me are very rapidly changing into a completely different pattern. So that's just one of the small details that we put into place to make things flow and look different for each person. And so now at this point, it's my pleasure to bring to the stage my colleague, Stan Phelps. And I'm going to tell you a bit about Stan. Stan is the founder and I'm going to say the chief goldfish officer at purplegoldfish.com, which is a think tank based out of the Frontier in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, that focuses on employee engagement and customer experience. And I said employee engagement first because employees first, customers second is always a wonderful formula for improving your customer experience. And so Stan is going to share with us a keynote today called Excellence Under Pressure. Now, as I have Stan join us, because Stan is going to stand and present, I've now stood up. And something that I need to do very gracefully is make the chair disappear. So we're going to do that right here. And now, please join me in giving a warm welcome, however you do that virtually, to Stan Phelps.
Thank you.
We're going to fist bump or elbow bump.
Elbow.
There we go.
Elbow. Well, thank you. Honored to share what I think is probably the most important book in the entire Goldfish series. It's called The Diamond Goldfish. And the central tenet of Diamond is how do you excel under pressure and how do you thrive? And so I can't think of a better topic right now as we look at these uncertain times to really address what I would call the elephant in the room, or better yet, maybe we call it the microbe in the room. And that is simply this. We're dealing in a very uncertain time with the coronavirus. We're all dealing with a ton of pressure. And so really how we handle ourselves in the coming days, weeks, and even months is going to be a real determinant of how we do in both business and in life. And so if we're going to talk about pressure, I think we have to start in the most important place. And by the way, I love this scene here. This is when we feel pressure and we feel threatened, we start to act out in very irrational ways. And I don't have to go any further than this gentleman right here buying 238 rolls of toilet paper. We have to understand why we act in that way. And the first place we have to go is understand how our brain works, because that's where it all starts. And the brain is really broken up into three parts. And we're going to start with the smallest part of the brain, but it's maybe the most critical as we think about pressure. And it's a part of the brain that's called the amygdala. And the amygdala, check this out, it is the size of an almond. It is tiny, right? And it sits literally right at the base of our brain. Most people would call the amygdala the lizard brain or the reptilian brain because that's the only part of the brain a reptile has. And the sole function of the amygdala is to be a constant highlighter looking at the environment and trying to sense one thing, and that's threats. And when it senses a threat, it lights up and it takes over. Now, the amygdala sits in the second part of the brain, And that second part of the brain is called the limbic system. So it kind of surrounds the amygdala. And the limbic system is responsible for controlling all of our bodily functions. Things like breathing, our heart rate, even our sweat glands. It's also where long-term memory is stored within our body. The third part of the brain, and it's the part of the brain that truly makes us human, it's called the neocortex. And the neocortex is really the thinking part of our brain. It's where language resides, art, analytical reasoning, and it's the thing that truly makes us humans as human beings until one thing happens. And that's when we sense our amygdala sees a threat in the environment. And essentially what the amygdala does, it sends signals to the limbic system, and the limbic system will shut down the thinking part of our brain. And that causes us to act really irrationally. And essentially as humans, we have essentially 4 different ways that we respond to these threats in terms of survival strategy. Now, it's the same 4 things that animals do in the animal environment. So I'm going to break down the 4 things, and we're going to start here with what we call the rhino quadrant. So what happens to a rhino when they feel threatened and they feel pressure? A rhino, their strategy is to dictate. And they're going to charge and go right at whatever the pressure or danger or threat is. The second strategy is what we call the deer quadrant. And when a deer feels pressure, it's biologically designed, it's got strong legs. Their strategy is to migrate. So in order, what they're going to do is they're going to try to get away, run from the situation, and that's how they cope. Birds are also in this quadrant. They feel under threat, they just simply fly away. Now the third quadrant is what we call the porcupine quadrant. Now what happens when a porcupine feels a threat? They don't run away, they don't charge, they simply hunker down, put their thousands of quills up, and their strategy is to tolerate and try to ride out until things change and then come back into normal. Turtles are also part of this. So what does a turtle do when they're feeling under threat? They just withdraw into their shell. The fourth quadrant is what we call the bear quadrant. Now, bears, when they feel like the environment is changing, they feel like there's a threat to their food supply, what do bears do? Well, they simply go into the cave, their biology starts to slow down, their heart rate slows, and their strategy is to hibernate and essentially ride out the storm. Now, here's the thing. With animals, based upon how their physical structure is, we can tell what their strategy is for survival. As humans, we do the same 4 things, but we have to look for clues in ourselves and those that we deal with. Now, what we write about in the diamond goldfish is trying to live in accordance with what we call the diamond rule. And we believe it's the 4.0 version of thriving and winning in business. Now, if diamond rule is the 4.0, let me quickly take you through 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And we'll start back with 1.0. And the silver rule developed all the way back in the time of Confucius. And the silver rule was really simple. It was this: do no harm, right? What I wish others not to do unto me, I also wish not to do unto others. It's not a bad start. In fact, when Google was formed in the 1990s, their central tenet for their code of conduct was what? Do no evil or don't be evil. All right? And again, it's not a bad place to start, but the problem is it doesn't quite tell you what to do. It only tells you what not to do. So it's very much foundational. The 2.0 is what we all know. Throughout every culture, every religion, it's the golden rule. And what does the golden rule tell us? Simply this: treat others the way that you would like to be treated. And this is not a bad way to raise children. It certainly goes further, right, than the silver rule. It actually is prescriptive. It's telling you what to do as well as what not to do. But for business, the golden rule is a bad rule. And here's the reason. Essentially, there are 4 different behavioral styles. And so with any person that you're dealing with, you have a 1 in 4 chance of being able to connect with them. It's bad for business. The 3.0 is what's called the platinum rule. And the platinum rule, it's kind of similar to the golden rule, but it takes it that 1 step further, right? Instead of treating others the way that you want to be treated, you simply deal with what the other person wants and you try to give it to them. So it's treating others the way that they would like to be treated. Now, again, this is better than the golden rule, right? Instead of being inward and thinking about what I want, the platinum rule is more based in emotional intelligence. It's about focusing on the needs of others and giving it to them. So it's definitely a step up. But here's the challenge. If I'm focusing on the other person the entire time, who am I neglecting? If I'm focusing on all my attention on the other person, I'm neglecting myself. And so the challenge is this: the platinum rule may be a good plan in terms of focusing on the other person, but in the immortal words of Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan exactly till you get punched in the mouth. So if I'm focusing on the other person the entire time and I'm not paying attention to myself, I can get triggered and the pressure can get to me. The 4.0 version is what we call the diamond rule. And the diamond rule combines the best parts of the golden rule and the platinum rule together. It's simply this: it's excelling under pressure. It's managing yourself under pressure and addressing the needs of others to avoid their triggers, the 4.0. And so again, it's an upgrade. It's simply 2 parts. The first part is this: I'm keeping myself under control and understanding what triggers me pressure-wise. And once I get myself under control and neutralized, I can then focus on the other person and I can empathize and I can address what their concerns are. Now, it turns out, I mentioned this about the animals, there's 4 different survival strategies. Well, they dictate what our behavioral styles are. And so really quickly, I want to go through each of the 4 behavioral styles to give you a little bit more input. And then I'm going to finish with a gift for everyone here. So let's start with the 4 behavioral styles. And we're going to start with that rhino, right? What did the rhino do from their biology? Their big thing, if they felt under pressure, they were going to dictate and try to charge into the situation. What's their concern? Well, if this is your behavioral style, your concern is that there's certainty, right? You want to know that there's a plan in place as you go forward. For this style, they're looking very much into the future. And what this style is called is a control, wanting to control what goes on in the future. That second quadrant was the deer quadrant. If you remember, their survival strategy was to migrate and get away to a better environment, what's their thing? They want to know that they have freedom. And they need to know that there are options and that they have flexibility. And so this style is what's called an influence, right? They want to influence their surrounding. They live right in the now. The third is what we call the third survival strategy was a tolerate strategy. This was the porcupine and hunker down, ride it out type of strategy. What's their concern? Their concern is stability. Like, don't rock the boat. Let's keep going. They want to make sure that there's a structure in place. And this behavioral style is what's called a power. They want to keep their head down. They want to just power through. The fourth and final strategy was the bear quadrant, and that was the hibernate strategy. What's their concern? Their concern is security. They want to know that ultimately, how are things going to work out? They want to know all of the information as possible. They live a lot in the past in trying to make things right. This behavioral style is what's called an authority. So these are the four behavioral styles. Really, if you want to excel and manage your pressure, it all starts with trying to understand your own style. And so today, up until midnight tonight, you can go on Amazon. We've made the ebook version of Diamond Goldfish free. And what's neat is every book comes with a style assessment. So it'll take you about 5 to 10 minutes. It's about 20 questions. Even if you want to write this down and go right to the style indicator, here are the instructions. You want to go to diamondgoldfish.com. If you can write down this 8-digit code, you can enter that, and you'll get emailed a link that allows you to take the assessment. So I want to finish with one last kind of quote or statement. And it's simply this, and I'm going to read this. Excellence under pressure is simply the ability or the empathy to perceive all that's around you. And the more you can understand what the concerns are through other people's styles, if you can understand their styles, the more you can thrive under pressure and ultimately solve for yourself, but for other people. So as I wrap up, I hope you download the book. I hope you do the assessment. And I wish you all the best as we go through these tough times. Thank you for having me.
Stan, hang out here with us a moment. The first thing I'm going to do is the thing that you don't get to hear because the audience is virtual.
Ah, there you go.
That's one thing that's missing from the virtual event,
Right.
is the applause. And I don't know how we can give digital applause, but maybe in the comments, folks can
Right.
let you know, or that they appreciate you and appreciate that
And I
message.
think it's also a little different as a speaker because you're used to having that audience engagement. Your timing can interact with the crowd, and when you're in a little more virtual setting, it's a little different.
So since we have a couple of extra minutes in our schedule, by the way, when has an actual event ever been under time?
Right.
When does that happen? But let me ask you this. How did this experience feel, and how was your preparation different preparing for this experience versus, let's say, a keynote with 1,000 people in the room?
Yeah, I think we had a chance to do something yesterday that was about 50 minutes in length. And so I think one of the things that when you do things virtually, it probably needs to be a little bit shorter. So it's a little more difficult to try to get things down into a 15-minute time frame. And I think at the end of the day, once you start getting going, you feel comfortable and at ease. But it's getting going is maybe the hardest part.
And so I thought your keynote was perfect for this time, excellence under pressure. Curious, what are you doing in your household to reduce the pressure?
Well, every night with my two boys and my wife Jen, we try to get out and do a little bit of walk to get a little bit of fresh air. We're trying to keep everyone on a schedule. I know the boys are doing a little yard work today. a little bit of schoolwork. A fun thing that we're doing is a word of the day. They're 12 and 14, so almost like these SAT words.
So what's today's word? Do you know today's word?
I couldn't tell you. I did hear it at the at the kitchen table.
But tonight at dinner, I presume, there'll be a discussion about the word.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think the word of today is virtual event. How about that? That's the word of the day in the room. Again, thanks so much to you, Stan, for being here. We'll elbow bump one more time. Really appreciate it. So friends, I had the privilege of, while Stan was speaking, was able to step over and see some of the comments that you guys were leaving. First of all, thanks for being here. I saw at one point there were 97 of you tuned in for this very event. That is astounding. I was joking that just the other day, we've done events where we've had trouble getting 97 people in the room. And here we have nearly 100 of you right here virtually, and I think that's pretty cool. Also, I really appreciate all the comments that you're leaving as a part of the system. We've really appreciated those, and for those of you that are having some issues, we apologize. We are recording this session, and we'll be able to share it with all of you. And instead of just recording using the Hop-In tool, we are recording here in the studio, so we're able to give you the highest quality recording that we possibly can. So we're very much excited about that. So again, as I mentioned, we're running a bit early, and I just got the 5 sign, which tells me I need to stretch for about 5 more minutes. And I got to be honest with all of you, I can't do it. If I were to stretch for 5 more minutes, guess what? You all would be bored. So I hear that Meredith Oliver is standing by and ready. And let's see if we can get Meredith to join us here in the studio. There's Meredith Oliver. Meredith, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic.
Fantastic. And you're here to talk about fantastic marketing. Is that correct?
Yeah, shocker, right?
Exactly. So Meredith is a keynote speaker. She speaks in the areas of sales, marketing, and really personal empowerment. And we were so excited that she would be kind enough to join us, not here in the studio, but join us virtually. And she will be sharing with you both her video and her slides from her location. You're here in Raleigh. Are you in Durham now?
Yeah, that's right. I am technically in Durham. I live in Durham now, but I am in my home studio, which with your help and a lot of other people smarter than myself, have been able to put together and really come out with a good looking presentation that's well lit, et cetera, et cetera. And if that's something we want to talk about at the end when I'm done with my actual content, we could do that, Evan. But yeah, I'm here in a home studio ready to rock and roll.
Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Meredith Oliver.
Hello. Evan gave me a bit of an introduction, but I'll go ahead and just tell you a little more about me. So I kind of wear 2 hats. One hat is I'm the principal of Meredith Communications, which is a digital marketing agency, and we specialize in home builder, realtor, and developer marketing. So on the one hand, my title reads Chief Digital Strategist, and we do that. But on the other hand, I'm an author, I'm a professional speaker. When I speak in all kinds of industries, everything from automotive to healthcare to staffing. I speak all different types of companies because really sales, marketing principles, digital marketing can apply quite broadly. Most of the time, I find myself in a very unique position. I consider myself an expert of the crossroads of sales and marketing. So I am a marketer who's always most interested in how many leads were generated, how many leads were followed up on, what was the conversion rate of those leads. So while I am a marketer, my end goal is always how to make a sale. So I kind of come to what we're going to talk about today and really all of my work from that perspective. Our company does website design and development, like I said, for home builders all over the country. Buffington in Austin, Texas is a good example of that. Now, the thing about me that most people remark on, particularly when I don't have as many highlights in my hair as I do at the moment, woo woo, going a little blonde there, girl. When my hair is super dark, I look like Flo, the progressive girl. Yeah, I'm gonna let that just sink for a minute. Yeah. So on your screen where it says me, that is literally me for Halloween 2 years ago, gone full flow. And you have to admit, there is a striking resemblance. I bring that up to entertain you and to humble myself, but more to make a point. You see, we like flow. We love flow. Flow is the bomb.com. Flow is amazing. Flow is everything you could want in a spokesperson. And in fact, in the 10 years that Flow has been the iconic spokesperson for Progressive Insurance, they have skyrocketed from a almost zero brand recognition position to number one in the category, the insurance category that they are in. It's incredible what the marketing campaign of Flow has really done for Progressive. And what Flow taps into is what I like to call the power of we. You see, we like flow, right? Who doesn't like flow? And everywhere I go, if I mention I look like Flo, the progressive girl, people just light up. They think that's funny because it is funny. But we like flow. And more importantly, we perceive that flow likes us, that flow likes us. You see, flow understands what we want. So she gets her price gun out and makes sure that our rates with Progressive are as competitive as anybody else in the industry. Flo knows that we like to, what is it? Say it with me, bundle and save. So you get your home, auto, and boat. You see, with every Flo commercial, Progressive feeds you what you want out of an insurance company in a friendly representation of Flo. And in the end, it makes you believe that Progressive gets you, that Progressive understands you, that we are in this insurance thing together. And with Flo's help, we are going to take care of you. And the end result is we, the consumer, we buy more insurance, we refer Progressive, and we shoot them to the very top position of their category as a reward. This power of we just taps into this sense of I'm a fan, but more importantly, Progressive Insurance is my fan, a fan of your fans. So I have to ask you today, does your marketing experience, when I'm on your website, when I'm in your email campaigns, when I'm on your social media pages, does that MX marketing experience, does it make me feel like the power of we? Does it make me feel like you get me, you understand me, you know what I want from you as a company in your category? Because let me tell you something. This has always been necessary. This has always been important. I have been speaking and doing keynotes all over the country on the power of we and fantastic marketing since 2010. Literally 10 years I've been talking about this, but today it's never been more relevant. So I have to ask you, what's your MX? What's your marketing experience? What is it like when I interact with you? Because it's always been the truth and the case that your marketing experience, your brand is not about you, folks. It never has been. But it's also never been more true that when we have an epic event, a massive disruption of personal and professional, and I will tell you, this is the third one I've been through. I know I can't possibly be that old, right? I know I have good products, but I've been through .com boom bust. I've been through 9/11. I've been through the housing crash of 2008. So this is actually number 4, yay me, right? And I'm going to tell you, when we go through a major disruption like this, and we will pray hard that this is a short lived one, this statement is true times a million. Your marketing is not about you right now. And if you make it about you, you will revolt and you will repel any of your fans or the goodwill you've built up. Does that mean you can't market right now? You can't sell? Absolutely not. So what we do is when we do fantastic marketing, we learn to flip our marketing message upside down so that we are still talking about our brand, but we're doing it through the wants, needs, and eyes of the fans. Here are two examples that revolted and repulsed me in the past week. And honestly, most of the time, I don't really do negative examples. I don't like to embarrass anybody, but this was so ridiculous, we're gonna embarrass them. I got this email from Jane, which is an online retailer, literally just a few days ago, plenty far into the crisis of the moment. I mean, I know things really ratcheted up this weekend, but this was late last week, plenty far in to know you should not be sending me an email of vacay away with a suitcase and talking about my staycation swimsuit, sandals, sunglasses. At worst, this is tone deaf, and at best, this is offensive. I'm going to give you another one. Our good old News and Observer here in the Raleigh market. That's our main newspaper. And they had a story on, I believe it was Saturday, on their website, giving an update that Harris Teeter and Publix grocery stores would be closing early. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Now, what I want you to try to picture is when I first clicked this, I couldn't see the text that's down below. All I could see was the main headline, the photo, and this line right here. Please note, the News and Observer and McCluskey news sites have lifted the paywall on this developing story, providing critical information to the readers. To support vital reporting such as this, please consider a digital subscription. To which I would like to give a hand gesture. And those of you that know me know I don't even do stuff like that. Like I'm super like straight-laced and boring, but that made me mad. So you're going to take credit for the fact that you're giving out free information on when grocery stores will be open during a pandemic. And then B, you have the nerve to ask me to donate because of your goodwill. You have to be kidding me. Not fantastic. Last one. And this is not even related to the current crisis. Once a week, I get an email from Silver Singles. Do I look silver to you? And I will have you know, thank you very much. I am one of the most married people you've ever met in your life. I've been married to the same man. Okay, it was 3 men, but I've been married 21 years. I am so married and I am so not silver. And once a week, I get an email blast from them and it makes me mad. So here's the thing. When you make it about you and not about the fans, particularly in a sensitive time, best case, we're going to completely ignore you, possibly eliminate you from ever doing business with you again. And third, we might actually decide your brand is so damaged, I no longer want to see, hear, unfollow, delete, block, spam. Right? We're not having it. We are not having it. Our attention span is so short. It's interesting listening to Stan. I loved what Stan did with the rhino and all the different animals. That was amazing. And honestly, I have something a little similar right here, but mine's not nearly as well thought out. Good job, Stan. What I've observed in talking with our marketing clients, and I've basically been talking, you can hear that I'm hoarse, right? I have been on the phone 18 hours a day since about Saturday, either on the phone or 5 text chains going at once or 3 live chats. It has been the Meredith Oliver Crisis Communications Marketing marketing hotline for home builders. How can I help you? For days. And I've talked to so many people that here's what I've figured out. Kind of like what Stan was saying with the animals and the different personality types. I've seen we've got three basic responses to a crisis situation. We've got the first group, group A. Group A is like, it'll be fine. It's all good. It's fine. Wash your hands. Don't go to places with a ton of people. It's all good. It's fine. What's the problem? We're going to keep going business as usual. And let me, as I describe these to you, it's important to me that you know I'm not judging any of these. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. Then I've got group B. Group B is like, this is kind of serious. Like, okay, all right, I'm not panicked, but you've got my attention. This is not business as usual. I need to go into problem solving mode and I need to figure out what I need to do different. And then you got group C. Group C is posting we're all going to die on social media. Okay. Group C is really scared, really freaked out. Group C is hunkered down in the bunker. You know that picture of all that toilet paper in that cart that Stan was talking about? Group C. Okay. Now, what's more important than understanding there's three groups is understanding this. Here's what I've also observed about human nature. We are super judgy about the other two groups. Whatever group you're in, you are super judgy about the other two. If you're group A, you think that's the right way to respond, and you think B and C are really losing it, and vice versa. Here's what I want you to understand. You have basically these three consumer groups to market to. And they respond to your marketing very differently. You could continue your marketing. Okay, I think we lost sharing. Just a moment, please. Hold on, there we go. Sorry about that. I'm back. You could continue marketing to group A and there would be zero issue, zero, okay? They would receive your messages, they would receive your vacay away email and not think anything of it. But B and C would be repulsed and repelled, okay? So what I want you to think about is how do we do this right? How do we possibly appeal to A, B, and C and make it about the fans? I give you redfin.com. Redfin.com, when you go and you search for a home there and you click on a property, I don't know when it's got on the site or how quickly, but I can tell you as of Monday, they had in place an option to tour in person or tour via video chat. Bingo. That's fantastic. If I am group A and I am not really very concerned, I could go in person. If I'm B or C and I'm wanting to change up how things work, I could go B. When you click on tour video chat and schedule tour, you get this, which is beautiful. Opportunity to schedule right here. You're making it easy for me. How fantastic is that? And look at how they messaged. Learn more about what we are doing to keep you safe. Nice. You know how many emails I got on Monday telling me about your cleaning procedure? It made me kind of wonder like how nasty your business has been the whole time. Like, why have you been cleaning like this the whole time? Like some of us are germaphobes and really finding out that you're just now deep cleaning is really frightening. So here's the thing. The way they messaged us, you see the flip? Instead of saying, here's our process to clean, they wrote, learn more about what we're doing to keep who safe? You safe. That's fantastic. Isn't that cool? But that's a positive example of what I'm talking about. So what's your next step? Where do you go from here? Right? So you've got to come out with a couple action items. Here's what I'd recommend. Number one, I would love for you to acknowledge and really come to an understanding there are three types of responses, at least as I've best observed in the 2 weeks we've been dealing with this, right? There's A, B, and C. And frankly, your sales, your marketing needs to appeal to A, B, and C, because people are really pulling back on their consumer confidence. So in order to engage with you, you got to go all out. You've got to keep doing what you're doing, and you want to appeal to all the groups. If you just hang your hat on group A, that's really like, okay, it's fine. I'll come to your open house. I don't care. That's one slice of the population. You won't make your numbers on just group A. Okay, you're not going to probably make your numbers you planned on anyway, but you'll come a lot closer if we hit all three groups. Then I want you to ask yourself, what is it like to buy from us right now? I see a typo. That's what happens when you create slides and a customized program in under 24 hours. What is it like to buy from us right now? Okay. And what is it like to be our customer right now? And you ask it for each of the three groups. For group A, that's like, I'm cool. What's it like to buy from us right now? What's it like to be our customer? The ones that are like, I'm concerned, and you keep running it through all three groups. Then you will list your action steps to modify your marketing experience and your customer experience for the three groups, ultimately to make it about who? To make it about them. I have these slides, and I will fix the typo when you download them, but I have these slides available at meredithspeaks.com/virtual-summit. At that link, you will also find a complimentary PDF version of my brand new book, Fantastic Marketing. It would be very disingenuous to talk to you about making it about you and then ask you to go to Amazon and buy the book, right? Right. So you're bored, you're sitting around, you want to learn a little more about marketing. I mean, what else have you got to do? You're like at your house 24 hours a day with these people that you're supposed to love, but you're like, oh my God. So read my book. It's free, PDFs on the website. I've also got links on there on the same page where you can access and find me on social. Facebook, Twitter, Gram, LinkedIn. I'm on all of them, do them all, right? So I want to thank you for giving us this chance. You're a bit of a guinea pig audience. We're not gonna lie, but it's really the point, right? Is that we had suddenly a very open event schedule. So it gave us the opportunity to do something for the fans. And that's what we're doing. And yeah, we're learning a little bit along the way and we're breaking a few eggs. But as we're doing it, hopefully you are getting some value while we work and serve you. And that's really what it's about. And it's interesting. I've been friends with Evan for many years, and I can tell you that he has many gifts and many talents that I appreciate. But one of them is his heart for service and the way that he thinks of others very automatically. He really does like and want to serve. And so when he texted me like a 2-sentence thing and said, want to do a virtual summit on Thursday, I was like, yep, I do. So I'm pleased to do it and I'm happy to be here. And Evan, I will answer any questions you have or talk to you about my studio, whatever makes sense. Quite honestly, I have no idea where I am time-wise at this juncture. So.
Well, Meredith, here's the good news. We're running early. And so the schedule in front of me, not very useful at this stage in the game. But thank you for those kind words. I'm honored by them, and I really don't know what to say. So what I'll do is what we do in show business. I'll move on to the next thing. So, Meredith, since part of the idea of this virtual event is we're talking about virtual events, could you tell us a little bit more about your home studio setup?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my estimation, there are 4 key elements to a home studio setup. So I'll rattle each one off. I'll try to be brief. Number 1 is a high quality microphone. So there are many mics out there, but you really do want to have a microphone that is separate and apart from your just basic embedded computer microphone. So my particular microphone is a Blue Yeti. YETI, and you can get that on Amazon for around $100. But like I said, Evan's got way more experience in this than me, and there's plenty of other choices. But you do need an external microphone. Number two, you need to do sound, the sound that you hear coming. You do not want to have the sound coming out of your computer speakers. That's what causes the echo. So I do my AirPods. So everything I've been hearing from the other presenters and from Evan are coming in through my AirPods. The AirPods last about 6 hours a day, and I do this stuff all day long. So they usually generally die at some point. At that time, I just go ahead and plug in my old-fashioned Apple headset into the Blue Yeti, and I get my outbound sound that way. Number three would be my webcam. I do not use the default camera in my iMac, although I could. It's not a bad camera, but I have more control with my Logitech HD camera. You can find that on Amazon as well. And then last but not least, what is lighting me right now and giving me this youthful glow is a ring light on a stand. Mine's a tripod stand. I also do have a desktop version, and that's what's giving me the light that you guys currently see. It's by a company Newer, and it's like Neweer, I think. And it, again, ring light, and mine's on a tripod stand because I have such a big computer to get the light up and over it. And then ideally, I know what Evan would tell me is I really need a backlight behind me, but we're not quite there yet. And then I've got of course, the backdrop. You always have to be aware of what's behind you. So I have very specific choices and bookshelves behind me that I do to kind of give it the whole look. So that's my home studio.
Life is short, buy the shoes and the home studio is what I'm hearing from you there, Meredith.
Right.
And Meredith, you started your presentation by reminding us and kind of giving us a sense of relief that you do in fact look like Flo, the progressive girl. And I think the Flo hair that you have going on there, it does a nice job of hiding your earphones. That was well done. That was a nice little trick there.
Right. I know sometimes when I'm doing these events, virtual ones, the meeting planners, I can tell like they're kind of stressed. So I'll just go like this real quick so they can just know that they are in. Although I don't know if you guys noticed, but we did have a little bit of a blurb with the screen share. Did everybody else see that, what I saw?
We saw it here in the studio.
Yeah, so that was me. I was tapping the earphone to kind of let you guys know that I could hear you talking while I was talking, but I don't think everybody else could. But unfortunately, that activated my iTunes on my iMac, at which point my praise playlist started to play and my screen share went away, and I just kept talking and closed one and opened the other, and it was crazy. So that's another thing about doing this. I think having so many live events under my belt that I've done everything. I mean, I've talked when the power's gone completely out of the building and I'm just standing there in the dark and they're like, keep talking. I mean, I've talked, I had 1,000 people in a keynote when the computer backstage caught on fire and there was smoke, and they were like, keep talking. So one of the things is I've done my time on stage, so it helps you to be a little bit less flappable with the tech stuff. And of course, anytime I'm doing anything with you, I feel very comfortable because I know you've got me, technically speaking. When I run them myself, I had a town hall virtual summit on Tuesday with about 300 people, and I was running the whole thing, and that gave me pause. Like, that made me nervous. So, but the actual delivering and something going wrong, I mean, that happens in live events all the time, and virtual's really no different. So if you just reframe it to yourself, you just keep talking.
Keep talking. That's an excellent learning. And I think the big learning here is the show must go on. And we have to continue on in spite of the challenges. And we're seeing a lot of great discussion in our forum here about the microphones. That was a Blue Yeti microphone that Meredith has. And Blue also makes a smaller microphone called a Snowball that I believe Stephanie has but wasn't active for her today. And so I think one of the things we've learned with our remote guests is we definitely need to have earphones to hear so they can hear us. And that makes our microphone quality that much clearer. And it's why here in the studio, even though we have a little bit of echo due to the nature of the room, we have much clearer audio coming out of the studio, because the only place where the guests are coming in are in the headphones of our team members and in the earpiece that I have here. And so we'll talk more about the studio. Another thought from you, Meredith?
I had a question. I'm going to raise my hand. Is that okay?
That's okay. You are live. You can go right ahead.
So my question was, how did my audio sound to you? Or to the live stream? Because I will admit, I have the Hopin live stream on a laptop while everyone else was talking, so I could see what was happening and what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a pretty good delay on it. And so I didn't want that to distract me. So once I started talking, I put the clamshell down on my Mac Air so that I wasn't like, 5 seconds later seeing myself. So I don't really, how did it sound to you guys?
I see 3 comments about your audio here in our feed. 4, now 5. Excellent audio. Audio sounded good. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Frida. Kate, fantastic audio from you, Meredith. Travis, your audio was fine. Sandra, your audio is excellent. So from our...
good.
From yes. Oh, here we go. The comments are coming in. Everyone says, great audio from you, Meredith. Woohoo!
I know. Hey, man. I typically, this Blue Yeti, it's plugged in USB into my iMac. I have a fairly new iMac. If I'm going to do a lot of this stuff, I, invest in really good equipment. I've got a fastest processor you can get or whatever to make sure the whole thing's running pretty well. And it typically does fine, but every once in a while, you just got to keep talking.
Keep talking. The show must go on. And dare I say, fantastic audio and a fantastic presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Meredith Oliver. We'll give a nice golf clap here in the studio. We were so happy to have Meredith join us, and we're actually going to move to an interesting part of our presentation today. One of the things we wanted to do is give you guys a sense of what we're doing here in the studio to make all of this happen. So I think the first thing that's important for us to note is that in our studio here, we are practicing social distancing. We are trying to do this endeavor as safely as we possibly can. So let's take a quick tour here. So John has the handheld camera there, and he's gonna come over here and join me. Very first thing, when you come into the studio, the first thing we ask of everyone is that you sanitize upon entry to the studio. And I'll be honest, it's probably a good time for me to sanitize now. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that while we talk. And we have our studio. You can't see the sign from this side, but it's restricted so that only those of us who are in the studio for a purpose are here. Now, we should say hello to our event planner extraordinaire, Terry Beal. Hello, Terry. Terry helped us decorate the set, and she's keeping us on time over here. And behind our Canon C200 is John Carter. And John Carter is taking proper precautions there behind the camera and is remaining a safe distance from everyone here in the room. Now, here in the center, this is an important thing to note. We have a monitor that shows me what is on the monitor behind me. This is where, as I'm talking to Meredith or as I spoke to Stephanie and Glenn, I could see them. And that's important so that we know what's live behind us, so I don't say, hey, and now here's Stephanie and Glenn, and they're not behind me. A big thing we want to be sure of. So moving around, we have another Canon camera. This is a Canon XA10. It's not a very great camera, but it's a perfectly fine camera, as John would tell me. And that is our wide shot in the room today. Now you'll notice that up above we have 2 light panels, And we've actually moved those around in the studio during breaks so that wherever we're standing, we have good lighting for the program. Now over here, we have our stage manager, Megan, and she's helping out with the switcher right now. And I want to point out some of the technology we have here. First of all, this laptop here at the top is bringing us Zoom and also allowing us to see some of the comments that are coming in from Hop-In. Now, we have two feeds coming out of Zoom that gives us both the slide view and the video that you saw when we had Meredith. Now, down below is our laptop that is using Open Broadcaster Studio to push our feed out to the Hop-In stage. We're able to see all of our cameras and feeds right here using our video switcher. Now our video switcher takes all of our various inputs, our computers, as well as our cameras, and puts them into our switched format so we determine what's live. Then we run that into a unit that both records our high quality feed and pushes that over to our MacBook Air as if it were a webcam. And that's how you're able to see me live right now. And of course, no studio is put together without some really great gaffer's tape, and we've got plenty in the studio. Now around the corner, you'll notice that we have both Scott and Jennifer over on this side. Scott is our audio engineer. He really doesn't like being on camera, but Scott is responsible for taking all of the feeds that we have, whether that be from Zoom or from my microphone or Stan's microphone, and making sure that the right thing is on at the right time. And I particularly appreciate that he puts the right thing in my ear at the right time. And Jennifer is changing up all the lights that you see behind us. We have her lighting console over here, and she can probably put on a show for us here as we go around the corner. You will notice that we specifically put Scott and Jennifer at separate tables. We separated the space a bit. That's not something we typically do, but it's something that we did in these unique times that we're in. Now, I'm going to scoot over this way while John scoots around. I've got a chair in my way now, so let's kind of do the dance, John. All right. So I mentioned Terry Beal, our event planner extraordinaire. She was so kind to help us decorate our set. We have some books. We have some succulents that Terry lovingly takes care of in our office. We have this fake succulent that I lovingly take care of, not in our office, because I don't really have a green thumb. And we did this to provide a bit of variety, something interesting to be behind us. Of course, we mentioned the video feed that we have here, and this feed is crucial to create that shot where I can stand here and you can see our guest or our slides right here in the studio. Now, Meredith mentioned that I would tell her that she needed a hair light, and we have one up here, and John can hop up there and take a look. That puts light on the back of the head and brings the subject forward off of the backdrop a bit. A very helpful thing. So we're really quite pleased about how things have come together here in the studio, just with the few days we had to organize everything. Of course, if you have any questions about the studio, we would love to answer them. Feel free to put them in the comments, or we can talk about them more during our discussion session later. So at this point, I want to transition and start showing you some of the features of the Hop-In platform that we're using. And so we're going to hop over here to the laptop. And what you're seeing is you're seeing me at about a 14-second delay in our Hop-In studio right now. Let's see, can we get Hop-In up on the big screen here, friends? We're working on that. There we go. Okay, so we have the stage, and the stage is where all of you have been thus far. On the stage, you have a stream, which is what we provided with you. We also have all of the chat that you see here. As organizer, I can create polls. I didn't do any for today, but you can have a multiple choice poll. You can also take a look at people and see all of the people who have decided to participate in the event, including, it looks like Dave, who's one of the co-founders of Hop-In, joined us for today's program as well. That's really cool. All of you entered through the reception area, which you see here on the left, and we have the expo area as well as the session area happening now. So let's take a look at the sessions. So if we go over to session, you'll notice that we have here a discussion session about virtual events. I'll click in there, and we will notice that a couple of people are watching. It looks like Jason has joined in the discussion session. The discussion sessions are set up so that up to 20 people can go into the discussion session and participate and have a breakout, so to speak. So what you can do is you can click on this blue participate button and join in, and that's what we'll be doing in a few minutes. The chat you can either look at the overall event chat or you can look at the session chat right there. I also want to point out the expo hall, which we have several booths that Glenn Gautier was so happy to set up for us. And we're going to take a look at the one for professionally speaking. This is Stephanie's company. And Stephanie's booth has chat where you can chat with whoever's in the room. Polls are a part of the event only, not a part of the booth. But we can also click a button and let the folks at Professionally Speaking know that we have interest in working with them. Now, you'll notice we have this spinning area here in the center. That's where we can enter into a live chat with whoever happens to be in the booth at that time. There's no one in this booth right now, but if there were, we could chat with whoever from Professionally Speaking, probably Stephanie, who would be right there and be a part of the event. So I'm going to switch back over and look at the latest comments, and we have a couple of questions. A lot of folks giving some applause. Glad we were able to give you guys that backstage tour. Appreciate the shout out on the gaff tape. Yes, gaff tape is important here. Jacob asks, what made you choose Hopin versus other providers? And I will be honest with you. One of our decisions was to go with something that we had some familiarity with. And so because we only had a 72-hour window to put this together, I chose the first one that I felt like hit all of our needs. That being said, I would probably do some more research. I like what I've seen so far, but this isn't the only way to do it. There are a million ways that you can put together a virtual event, and I look forward to exploring some of those with you. So friends, we've made it to 3:22, and we're actually running about 25 minutes early in our event, which means that unlike most in-person events, we did a really good job of staying on time, which I'm very, very happy about. So at this point, I would be happy to answer any other questions you have over in the discussion session room that you can access by clicking on Sessions on the left side of your screen. But for now, I want to make sure that I thank everyone who was involved in this event. I want to thank Stan Phelps and Stephanie Scotti, Meredith Oliver, Glenn Gautier for joining us as a part of the program. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Michael Hobgood at the Nest Raleigh, who was kind enough to allow us to use this vacant room as our studio. I want to acknowledge Terry Beal, our event planner extraordinaire, who helped put things together, and most importantly, made sure the crew had a individually packaged boxed lunch, supporting one of our local restaurants and also making sure that we got something to eat. Credit to John Carter, our primary camera operator, and to Megan Leonard, our stage manager, John Cox, a videographer and video switcher, and my right hand in producing a lot of the video work that you've seen here, Scott Bruno, who ran our audio board, and Jennifer Sherrod, who took care of the lighting for us. So we really appreciate all of you for joining us. The virtual event is not over. We're finished here on the stage, but you can go over to the sessions area that's available to you on the left side of your screen, and you can continue the discussion. And we look forward to seeing you there.